Excuse me. I'm feeling a bit unwell. Would it be okay if I lay down for a bit? What a time to feel sick. Today, I'm working from home and participating in a web meeting. Despite having someone on the other side, I feel pathetic for making such a request. No problem at all. I understand you're pregnant, so please take care of yourself. How about we take a break and reconvene in 30 minutes? Thank you so much for your consideration. Could we do that, please? I'm relieved that the person in charge is so understanding. Normally, this wouldn't be allowed. I decided to take their offer and rest for 30 minutes. Lying down should help me feel better. To get back to feeling well as soon as possible, I set an alarm on my phone and was about to sleep when suddenly the door to my room burst open. Startled, I looked towards the door and saw my mother-in-law standing there with an angry look on her face. Are you playing on your computer again? Not doing any housework and just playing around? What a terrible daughter-in-law you are. I'm sorry. I'm actually working right now. I tried to explain while lying down, but it probably didn't sound convincing to my mother-in-law. As expected, my mother-in-law started yelling at me. Working? What kind of work is done lying down? Don't lie so much. It's true. I'm just taking a break because of severe morning sickness. I'm indeed on a break, and the morning sickness is severe. I honestly told my mother-in-law, but she wouldn't believe me. So irresponsible. We can't afford to have a lazy daughter-in-law like you. My mother-in-law must think I'm talking back to her. She started stomping on my stomach while yelling at me. Please stop, the baby. It's your own fault. If you didn't want this to happen, just get out of here. No matter how much I begged, the violence from my mother-in-law didn't stop. This could harm my unborn child. I felt sorry for the person in charge, but I had to cancel the meeting and escape immediately. Just then, I heard a voice from my computer. Hey! What are you doing? I couldn't see the monitor, so I didn't know who was speaking. But when I glanced at my mother-in-law's face, I could tell her face, which was red with anger at me just a moment ago, had turned pale. Why? Later, I would find out why my mother-in-law was so scared. My name is Emily. I turned 32 this year. After graduating from vocational school, I got a job in IT. Even though I had studied IT, I struggled a lot at work and thought about quitting many times. I felt like I had no talent, was no good at my job, and was just a burden. About 3 years after joining the company, I found myself thinking negatively every day and was nearing my breaking point, physically and mentally. When I went to my boss to ask to resign, he took me to the conference room. Me? Really? Yes. You've got a great reputation for your work. I want you to handle a new project. As soon as I entered the conference room, my boss told me about a new project he wanted me to take on. Well, but I'm not sure I can handle a new project by myself. I was fully prepared to quit, so I honestly told my boss that. I thought no one would entrust a major task to someone who says something like that. But then, my boss gave me an unexpected answer. Of course, you can't do it alone. That's why I want you to work on this project as a team. I've got your partner here today. Just wait a moment, please. With that, he left the conference room for a moment. My partner. Who could he be bringing? I waited anxiously for about 10 minutes. Then my boss came back into the room with a man. Let me introduce you. This is Kevin. He'll be working on the project with you. You're Emily, right? Nice to meet you. Likewise, nice to meet you. He's really handsome and has such a refreshing aura. That was my first impression when I saw Kevin. After talking with my boss, I learned that Kevin, although in a different department from mine, was quite outstanding and highly regarded by his colleagues and subordinates. So, can you two start working on this project right away? The method is up to you. Just make it a success. After a while, my boss left these words and exited the conference room. As soon as we were alone in the room, I suddenly felt nervous around Kevin, which I hadn't felt before. I might hold you back, but I'll do my best. I thought about quitting the company until I met him. But after reintroducing myself to Kevin, he smiled and replied, "Don't worry so much. I'll also make sure not to be a burden to you, Emily. Let's help each other out and make this a success." From then on, Kevin and I tackled various tasks with all our might. Kevin, who could get along with anyone, mainly handled sales and presentations to clients, while I developed systems as requested. Just like what was said in that conference room, as we supported each other, our relationship naturally improved. We started going out together not just for work, but for fun too, and eventually, we developed a romantic relationship. 1 month later, we successfully completed the project and were recognized in the company. This made me think that maybe I could continue working a bit longer and become more dedicated to my job. Furthermore, a year later, Kevin and I had been dating smoothly. Finally, Kevin proposed to me. "I want you to support me both in my career and personal life." I had little experience with men, but we managed to come this far without any major arguments. If I let this chance slip by, I might never get married again. Feeling happier than ever, I said, "If you're okay with me." I'd be honored, and accepted his proposal. Later, we went to Kevin's family home to introduce ourselves, but here, a rather unpleasant event occurred. "I'm sure my dad and mom will like you, Emily." "Really? I hope so." Nervously, I entered Kevin's family home. When Kevin said I'm home, his father greeted us at the entrance. "You're Kevin's fiancé? Didn't expect you to be such a beauty. Come in, even though it's a bit messy." My father-in-law was just as kind to me, a stranger, as he was to Kevin. I thought to myself, if he's like this, my mother-in-law must be a nice person too. We followed his father down the hallway, imagining what my mother-in-law might be like. Then we were led into the living room, where my mother-in-law already was. "Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Emily, and I've been dating Kevin." I greeted my mother-in-law with a deep bow as soon as I entered the room. However, my mother-in-law seemed to ignore me, not even glancing my way, and just kept watching TV. "Hey, Mom. Emily's greeting you, at least say something back." "Oh. Kevin. You're back." She reacted completely differently to Kevin than to me. Ignoring me, but immediately responding to Kevin's words. At this point, I had a bad feeling. "Let's not worry about Mom for now. Come on, have a seat." Okay, thanks." Kevin encouraged me to sit on the living room sofa, right in front of my mother-in-law. After I sat down, my father-in-law and Kevin also sat on the sofa. "So, Kevin? You said you had something to talk about?" My mother-in-law said this as she turned off the TV she had been watching and looked intently at Kevin. The tension in the air was indescribable. "Yeah. I'm going to marry Emily. We came today to formally announce it." "Huh?" As Kevin finished speaking, his mother let out a big sigh. "I'm not against marriage. Just not with this girl." "What? Does that mean she's opposed to me marrying Kevin?" I couldn't help but voice my surprise. "Kevin told me that your parents were poor and you had a hard life, right?" "Yes, well, you might already know this from Kevin, but my husband is a business owner. Kevin, being his son, never had to struggle with money." Indeed, I heard from Kevin that my father-in-law runs an automotive parts manufacturing company. Their house is impressive, and it's obvious they have money. But I didn't understand how this related to our marriage. "So, what does that have to do with anything?" "Oh dear, not too sharp, are you? Let me spell it out for you. You and Kevin have different values, so it's better to call off the marriage." It's not like you can't understand that. I wanted to argue back firmly, but I couldn't find the words and just stayed silent. "Hey! What kind of thing is that to say? Different values? That's not true at all. If it were, we would have broken up a long time ago." "Yeah, Mother, you shouldn't say things like that." Kevin and my father-in-law seemed to be on my side. Kevin expressed his anger towards my mother-in-law, and my father-in-law tried to calm her down. Well, that may be true. Okay then, how about this? My mother-in-law seemed to be convinced by their words but still looked at me with something unsaid. What is it? You're ready to marry Kevin, right? Of course. Marrying Kevin means you'll also take care of me and my husband when the time comes, right? When that time comes, I'll do whatever it takes, whether it's caregiving or anything else. I finally spoke my mind clearly to her. As a future daughter-in-law, I'm prepared for the day when that responsibility comes. I thought this would surely make her agree to the marriage. But then she said something I never expected. If you're going to marry, you must move into this house. That's the condition. But that's so sudden. Emily might feel uncomfortable. If you don't agree to that, I won't approve of the marriage. Just give up. I never thought it would come to this. The condition my mother-in-law laid out was to move into my in-laws' home after marriage. I wanted to live alone with him at least for a while after getting married, but it seemed unavoidable. To get her approval, this might be the only way. I took a deep breath and looked directly into my mother-in-law's eyes before saying, "All right. I'll live in this house. I'm prepared for it. So, please approve of our marriage. I'm asking you." My husband and my father-in-law looked quite surprised to hear my statement. They probably never thought I would agree to such a condition. If you say so, I'll approve. Take care of us well, Emily. And so, despite everything, the marriage introduction was over. Of course, I was anxious about living in my in-laws' house, but with Kevin and my father-in-law there, it would probably be all right. 6 months later, we had our wedding, and I officially became Kevin's wife, starting our new life in my in-laws' house as promised. For the first 3 months of living there, my mother-in-law didn't say anything. She was probably observing me. Knowing I was being watched, I made sure to wake up early to do the cleaning and laundry before going to work. I thought if I did the housework properly, there wouldn't be any complaints, right? But one morning. Okay then, mother-in-law. I'm heading to work now. As I was about to leave for work after finishing the house chores, my mother-in-law called out to me. Wait a minute. What is it? I need to hurry, or I'll be late for work. Just come here and sit down. I sensed a long conversation was coming. So I made a quick call to inform my boss I'd be late. Sorry for the wait. So, what is it? I asked timidly, kneeling on the floor in front of where my mother-in-law was sitting. Emily? You're pregnant, aren't you? Yes. Did Kevin tell you? Around this time. I was indeed pregnant with my husband's child. We had discussed it, and it was agreed that I could continue working, but was that what she wanted to talk about? As I braced myself for her words, she slowly began. Yes, I heard. You're planning to keep working, right? Yes. What are you thinking? You should quit your job right now. Just as I thought. It was hard to hear, even though I expected it. Before meeting my husband, I would have happily quit, but now it's different. I've been feeling more capable and fulfilled in my work. While my body still allows, I want to work. That was my thought until. But, quitting now is a bit much. Besides, with a baby on the way, we'll need more money than ever. What? Are you talking back to me? First of all, you're pregnant and still thinking of continuing to work? If you have time for that, you should be improving your cooking skills or doing something useful. My mother-in-law kept insisting I quit my job, venting her frustrations on me. She constantly criticized me, saying things like you can't even do household chores properly or it's pitiful for a child to be born to such a mother. My mental health was reaching its limit. Hey, are you listening? Do you understand what I'm saying? As I was being scolded, I glanced at the clock on the wall and it was past 8:30. I've been lectured for almost an hour now. I can't afford to be any later for work. I guess I have to give in. I'm listening, and I understand what you're saying. I thought this would free me from my mother-in-law. But it wasn't that easy. Then go tell your company you're quitting today. I was stunned by her words. All right, I understand. Although I said that, I had no intention of quitting my job. What should I do now? Finally released, I managed to get to work about 2 hours late, but my mood was off. What should I do? Sitting at my desk, I muttered to myself, and my boss noticed. What's wrong? You don't look well. Oh, it's nothing. I'm fine. Doesn't look like it. Come with me for a moment. My boss led me to a conference room. It's private here, no one will hear. Can you tell me what's going on? My mother-in-law told me not to work because I'm pregnant. I want to keep working, but she said I should quit today. I see, that's what happened. I really didn't want to have this conversation. I could only trouble my boss with my problems. After hearing my story, my boss seemed confused about what to do. For a while, we just sat in silence in the conference room. Then, after about 5 minutes, my boss had a flash of inspiration and spoke to me. How about this? What is it? Remote work. If you work from home, your mother-in-law can't complain, right? If it's desk work only, it'll be less physically demanding too. That's true. That might work. Immediately after leaving the conference room, my boss went to the HR department to request approval for my remote work. Although there had been remote workers before, it was a first for my department. I just hoped it would be approved. Watching from my desk, I saw my boss turn around and give me a thumbs up. It was decided I would start remote working the next day, as an immediate shift would be too difficult. That's great. Hopefully, this will work out. Thank you so much. You've been a big help. Thanks to my boss, I had one less worry and was able to focus on my work for the rest of the day. Preparing for the transition to remote work, I finished all the handover documents and passed them on to my successor. So, I'll be working from home starting tomorrow. See you all later. I left the office a bit later than usual. When I got home, it was already dark outside. I'm home. As I opened the front door, there stood my mother-in-law, arms crossed and standing like a guardian deity. Her face was red with anger, apparently upset about something. Did I do something wrong? As I thought this and tried to go to the living room. But she blocked my way. Wait a minute, mother-in-law. Please let me through. I had to ask her to move. You quit your job, right? No, I didn't quit, but... What? That's not what we talked about. But... Starting tomorrow, I'll be working from home, so I'll be around the house every day. Okay then. I expected more of a reaction, but she didn't say anything else and just walked into the living room. At least for now, I guess I can relax a little. I need to thank my company and boss for allowing me to work from home. However, the next day marked the beginning of intense harassment from my mother-in-law. The following morning. Hey! How long are you going to sleep? Get up now. Huh? What's going on so early in the morning? Woken up by my mother-in-law's loud voice, I checked the time on my phone by my pillow. It was only 5 a.m. There was still plenty of time before work, so I wanted to sleep a little more. I tried to ignore her and go back to sleep, but she kept calling my name loudly over and over again. Eventually, it would wake up my husband too. I didn't want to cause him any trouble. Reluctantly, I decided to get up and headed to the living room where my mother-in-law was. What's the matter? It's only 5 a.m. Only? You mean it's already 5 a.m., right? Come on, hurry up and make breakfast. What? Are you ready to eat breakfast now? Don't we usually eat later? Stop your chatter. I've been patient until now because you were going to work and I didn't want to wake you. I'm kind, right? But from now on, you'll get up at this time every day to make breakfast. Oh no. Patient, huh? She could have just made and eaten it herself. Despite being frustrated by her words, I started preparing breakfast as she asked. About 30 minutes later, I told my mother-in-law that breakfast was ready. My mother-in-law, who had been relaxing and watching TV in the living room, came to the dining table, grumbling, "Finally ready, huh? You're slow. What took so long?" "Sorry. Please go ahead and eat." "Well, I will," my mother-in-law said and began with the soup. Then, "What's this?" "Huh? It's too salty." "Are you trying to make me ingest a lot of salt to die early?" "No. That's not it at all. I made it exactly the same way as always. It couldn't be that different. I've tasted it several times myself, and there's no way it could be too salty just today. This is why people who only work are no good." "Fine. I'll thoroughly teach you how to do housework." My mother-in-law must have been looking for an excuse to say this from the beginning. Well, it's not good to provoke her, so I might as well listen. "Thank you. I appreciate your guidance." "Oh, surprisingly obedient. That's good." And so, I began receiving various housekeeping instructions from my mother-in-law, but I soon realized I should have refused. After seeing off my husband and father-in-law to work, I returned to my room to start remote working. But my mother-in-law wouldn't allow it. "What are you doing?" She barged into my room and asked. "I'm working." "Before doing that, you should do the housework." "Is the cleaning done? Is the laundry finished?" "No, not yet." "There's no job that just involves touching a computer all the time. Get cleaning quickly." My mother-in-law is an old-fashioned person. Work means physical labor. She must think remote work is inconceivable. That's probably why she thinks remote work is inconceivable. "Wait, please, just let me check my email." "Put that off for later." My mother-in-law raised her voice. At this point, I couldn't predict what she might do next. Reluctantly, I paused my work to start cleaning. I went to the living room and began vacuuming the floor, but my mother-in-law seemed dissatisfied with my actions. Sitting arrogantly on the sofa, she kept instructing me. "Do you think vacuuming alone will clean it? Use a rag and clean the floor thoroughly. It's common sense, isn't it? Damn. You don't even do that much yourself." I wanted to talk back fiercely but restrained myself. After being tied up with chores for about 2 hours, I was finally free to work. Now, I can finally get some work done. I started tackling the backlog at my desk, but again my mother-in-law called out loudly from the living room. "Emily! Come here!" "What now?" Interrupting my work again, I went to the living room. "What's the matter? Can you make some tea? Give me a break." Sorry, but I'm in the middle of work." "Can't you do it yourself?" I finally said what I was thinking, unable to hold back any longer. My mother-in-law reacted excessively. "What? You're talking back? You're so entitled. You're not even working, just playing on that computer. Please, stop it." My mother-in-law, in a fit of anger, grabbed me by the shirt. Fortunately, she didn't hit me, but I had no idea if she would or not. I apologized and somehow managed to calm the situation. From then on, it was completely her show. She began calling me for trivial things and put me to work. Not just cleaning and laundry, but even massaging her and running errands. I was treated like a housemaid, doing all sorts of things. I had asked my husband and father-in-law to stop her tyranny, but she didn't do anything when they were around. They couldn't believe she was treating me this way. After about half a year of relentless mistreatment from my mother-in-law, I was physically and mentally exhausted. Then, one day, a specific incident led to direct violence from her. That day, I had finished all the cleaning and laundry early. Because there was an important web meeting scheduled. This project had to be a success. I was prepared and confident for the meeting, having prepared thoroughly every day, but suddenly I started feeling unwell. "Excuse me. I'm feeling a bit unwell. Would it be okay if I lay down for a bit?" "Of course. You're pregnant, so please take care of yourself. How about we take a break and reconvene in 30 minutes? Thank you so much for your consideration. Could we do that, please? It was embarrassing to ask for a break during such an important meeting, but thankfully, the person in charge was understanding. Normally, this wouldn't be allowed. I decided to lie down for 30 minutes. Lying down for a bit will surely help me feel better. Just as I was about to sleep after setting an alarm on my phone, the door to my room burst open. I was startled and looked towards the door, where my mother-in-law stood, looking angry. "You're playing on your computer again. Not doing any housework and just playing around. What a terrible daughter-in-law you are." "I'm sorry. I'm actually working right now. And I've finished all the housework." I tried to explain while lying down, but she probably didn't find it convincing. As expected, she began yelling at me. "Working? What kind of work is done lying down? Don't lie so much." "It's true. I'm just taking a break because of severe morning sickness." It's true that I'm on a break, and the morning sickness is severe. I honestly told my mother-in-law, but she wouldn't be convinced. "You're really irresponsible. We can't afford to have a lazy daughter-in-law." My mother-in-law must think I'm talking back to her. Incredibly, she started stomping on my stomach while yelling at me. "Please stop, please, the baby. It's your own fault. If you didn't want this to happen, you should just leave." No matter how much I begged, the violence from her didn't stop. This could harm my unborn child. I felt sorry for the person in charge, but I had to cancel the meeting and escape immediately. Just then, I heard a voice from my computer. "Hey! What are you doing?" I couldn't see the monitor, so I didn't know who was speaking. But when I glanced at my mother-in-law's face, I could tell her face, which was red with anger at me just a moment ago, had turned pale. "Why?" I also looked at the monitor, and there was my father-in-law. Before lying down, I had left the meeting screen open, so my mother-in-law's actions had been completely seen by my father-in-law through the camera. Seizing this opportunity, I cried out to the screen. "Father-in-law! Please help me!" Within an hour, my father-in-law had returned home. Now, I wouldn't be harassed by my mother-in-law anymore. She had bullied me enough, it was time for some payback. My father-in-law entered my room and started yelling at my mother-in-law. "What are you doing? Emily is pregnant, you know that." My father-in-law, grabbing her by the shirt and yelling, was intimidating. Just like a factory owner. But my mother-in-law, though scared, was desperately trying to defend herself. "Wait, why are you even attending the meeting? What's this about?" "Why? Because my company is outsourcing work to Emily's company, that's why." "What?" My father-in-law's company was implementing original system solutions and promoting digital transformation as part of site management. My company handles such projects, and I proposed it to my father-in-law. This was the kickoff meeting for the project. Of course, my mother-in-law knew nothing about it. I was supposed to leave the meeting to the staff, but I got curious and joined late. Then I saw the footage of you stomping on Emily. "What in the world are you doing?" My father-in-law said this as he threw my mother-in-law to the ground and began stomping on her stomach just like she did to me. "Stop! It hurts. Hurts, doesn't it? You did such a terrible thing to Emily." Even though he was doing it for me, I couldn't let it continue, fearing she might really get hurt. I stopped my father-in-law. "Father-in-law, it's okay now. Thank you." My father-in-law stepped back from my mother-in-law as I intervened. Now it was my turn to speak up to my mother-in-law. "Mother-in-law? What? You've been terrible to me, haven't you? You said I was an NEET who only touched the computer. But now you see, right? I have been working. But it's your fault. You didn't quit your job like I told you to." "Maybe so, but why do I have to listen to everything you say? It's my life, isn't it? Kevin told me I could keep working for a while. And we even discussed taking a break from work as my due date approached. When you suddenly told me to quit, I had to get my boss's help to switch to working from home. Do you understand? Your words inconvenience many people. I let out everything I had been holding back. I couldn't stand her thinking she could have everything her way. And one more thing I want to say. I am not your maid or your parent. If you had difficulty walking, I would understand, but making tea is something you can do yourself, isn't it? You're not a child, please do it yourself. Who are you calling a child? Don't you dare underestimate me, you little brat. Angered by my words, my mother-in-law tried to grab me by the collar. But I didn't let her, grabbing her wrist firmly instead. You always resort to violence quickly, but if I get serious, I can easily dodge and overpower you. Maybe you should consider your age? If you underestimate me too much, you might be the one to suffer. I understand, please. With a look of anguish on her face, her mother-in-law sat there helplessly. I'm sorry. Could you cancel today's meeting for now? I'll let the person in charge know from here. Yes, it's fine here. Thank you very much. After saying that, my father-in-law went back to his office. After that, my mother-in-law did not do anything to me. I was thinking, I can't believe how much progress I can make at work when I am not disturbed. As I was working with such a thought in my mind, it was already evening before I knew it. As I got down to business and started preparing dinner, my husband and father-in-law came home together. Emily, are you all right? My father told me a lot about you. I'm fine. It's nothing serious. After a brief conversation with my husband, he immediately asked me, my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law to gather in the living room. I was in the middle of cooking dinner, but I stopped and sat down on the sofa in the living room. My mother-in-law was already sitting on the sofa, but she must have sensed what was about to happen. Her face was pale and her body was shaking slightly. Mom. What you did to Emily during the day. Is it true? Mother-in-law did not answer my husband's question and kept her face down. My husband, perhaps fed up with such an attitude, yelled at her. You won't understand if you don't tell me. Besides, my father told me everything. Yes. My mother-in-law, realizing that she could not escape from this situation, honestly confessed that she had attacked me during the daytime and that she had been a persistent wife-beater to me until now. I knew it was true. My husband's shoulders slumped, perhaps in shock at hearing this from his own mother. Next, my father-in-law opened his mouth. I am going to divorce you. What? I'm responsible for the way things turned out. I let you do whatever you wanted until now. Wait a minute. Divorce, how am I supposed to live with this? You've been talking a lot of big words to Emily, haven't you? You can live on your own if you're a good person. I don't know. Go ahead and live on your own. My mother-in-law, who had been completely abandoned by her father-in-law, was despairing with a face like it was the end of the world. Well, it's my own fault that things turned out like this. I can only think that I deserved it. After that, my father-in-law and mother-in-law agreed to divorce. They are going to kick her out of this house tomorrow. And the next day. My mother-in-law was about to leave my parents-in-law's house with a large amount of luggage. Do I really have to leave? Of course. My father-in-law was not going to change his mind. Thank you for everything you've done for me. My mother-in-law gave up and tried to leave. Seeing her back, I remembered the last thing I wanted to tell her. Mother-in-law. Please wait. What? Her face was somewhat cheerful as she stopped at my call. I wondered if she thought I would forgive her. But I am not that naive. How dare you step on my belly? I'm telling you, if anything happens to this girl, you'll be punished accordingly. It won't be anything more than a fee, okay? Please be prepared. I said to my mother-in-law with a smile, and she left the house with her face drawn. In fact, I wanted to turn her in to the police right now and get my share of the fee, but I decided not to do that. Father-in-law. Are you sure it was a good idea? After seeing my mother-in-law off, I checked with my father-in-law again. I was glad that he had defended me, but I thought that he really did not want to divorce her. That's what I thought. It's totally fine. I never thought that she was such a terrible woman. In fact, I should have been more severe with her when Emily came to greet us. I'm sorry. He apologized. At any rate, now I could finally cut off the relationship with my mother-in-law. From now on, my mother-in-law has to do everything by herself. At best, she will have to live with hardships. Thinking so, I went to my room and started to work. 1 month later, my mother-in-law was gone, and the house was peaceful. My work was no longer disturbed, and the project I received from my father-in-law's company was going well. I sometimes wondered what my mother-in-law was doing, but other than that, I was spending my days peacefully. Then one day, I had a chance to ask about my mother-in-law at dinner time. Because my husband had asked my father-in-law about my mother-in-law. Well, you know, Dad. What's up? Well, how is Mom? Oh. My father-in-law stopped eating and slowly began to tell me about his mother-in-law's recent condition. I'm divorced, but I'm still curious about her. I sometimes go to the apartment where she lives. Her room is a mess and she seems to eat only grocery store food. She used to do normal housework and cook her own meals, but she has become so depraved that I was honestly surprised. I see, what does she do for a living? I don't know, but she said she works at a supermarket. But we are old enough to get pension, right? So she doesn't seem to work that often. I didn't think my mother-in-law was in such a situation. There was no way I could get alimony from someone like that. She would have told me that she didn't have any money anyway. Well, if she was able to fall that far behind, so be it. I had nothing to say and tried hard to hold back my laughter. Soon, my husband and I will have a baby. We already know that it will be a girl. I must make sure that my newborn child will not be raised by someone like my mother-in-law. With this thought in mind, I am looking forward to the day of the birth.